All right, Bigfoot Society. We've got the privilege of talking to two gentlemen today. Their names are Greg Tucker and Charles McCloud. They are Bigfoot researchers from Central Kentucky, and they have been involved with some really interesting things over. You guys can correct me in a little bit, but I want to say it feels like it may have been a year. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but just to give some background, and they'll provide their own version of this, I'm sure, but listeners that have listened to the podcast for a while, you're familiar with Mark Paul from Clay County, Tennessee, who's got some really interesting, fantastic things going on his property. Now, the last episode I did with Mark, he had said people could reach out and they could reach out to me, and then I could let Mark know. Thankfully, Greg reached out quickly enough so that I could make the connection between him and Mark. But thankfully, I can't imagine if the connection between Greg and Charles and Mark had never been made. And listeners will find out in the next few minutes exactly what has happened at this property over the last few months. But Greg and Charles, it's a privilege to have you on the show finally to share what you've found down there. And welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you, Jeremiah. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And thanks again for having us on your show.
Yes, listened to it many times. Very glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Guys, before I let you get into it, is there anything that the listeners would need to know about either of you besides that you are Bigfoot researchers from Central Kentucky?
Yeah, to bring your listeners up to date, Charles and I have been friends since high school, and in probably the last 8 years, we do a lot of hiking in the Daniel Boone National Forest throughout central, southern Kentucky, even down into Tennessee, the Big South Fork and those areas. And over the years, we had a lot of strange things happen to us, but we never could pinpoint it. Me personally, as a younger adult, I'm in my mid-50s, but I'd watched In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy and seen the Patterson-Gimlin film. I think it was the late 70s, maybe 1980. And I'd always thought that looked real to me as a child from the lens of a child. But I was always thankful that we didn't have those creatures in Kentucky, which my life changed a few years ago with confirmation of those creatures being here. So since that, actually, it's been multiple encounters that Charles and I have had in the woods. And it's just a passion that we have to learn more about these species.
One of my favorite sayings when it comes to Bigfoot, you're not going to see one at the dollar store. You have to get out in the woods. You have to spend time in the woods. Not on the main trails. Just get completely off trail and go and see it. It's fascinating what you will see if you're looking. Most people just walk through the woods, never glance down. You're stepping in footprints and have no idea of it. Something that you hear fall, that's not always a walnut or something. Pay attention. We heard, I bet, 30 different quote-unquote walnuts fall until one day we saw the rock bounce off a tree. And that's like rocks don't grow in trees. And all of it just started coming together. So you start looking at the ground more for footprints, and then you find footprints. And it's pretty easy to tell if they're in the area or not. The areas that we're looking in is really remote. It's nothing to just get off of a trail and be able to walk 10 miles without hitting a road or house or anything. That's the areas where they're at.
Absolutely. Greg and I have been talking for hours on the phone over the last year, it feels like, and just about amazing things that have been going down at this property. But Greg, would you be able to share your version of how you got involved with Mark and start us down the road to what you've got going on here?
Yeah, Charles said we've been going off trail a lot and finding these creatures in the forest. It's just the true proverbial looking for a moving needle in a moving haystack. And I'd listened to your episode 407. I think it was in April of 2024 when that premiered. And Mr. Paul had extended an invitation to anyone. And I think his invitation, I can't remember it verbatim, but if you want to see a Bigfoot, reach out to Jeremiah. So that's when I'd reach out to you, Jeremiah, and I'd briefly told you that Charles and I research on our own. We're fortunate. We've got thermal equipment. We've got drones, long duration recorders. we try to leverage technology the best we can, and it's helped us immensely. But we seen Mr. Paul's property as an opportunity to not be looking for that proverbial moving needle in a moving haystack, because once we went down there, I initially made contact with Mark and had several phone calls with him for us to get to know each other better. And then the first trip down, I went myself. Charles and I had talked about it. People really don't understand how intelligent these creatures are. So we didn't want to do anything with me and Charles going there. We didn't want to disrupt any potential patterns that they may have or agitate them or aggravate them. So I just went down. I think it was actually, hold on here a second, and I will tell you when I went down. I'm pulling up my notes here. It was on April 9th, 2024. I visited Mr. Paul's home. I went down in the morning. We went around his property, and I was just amazed at the footprints, the tree breaks, small structures. That's sort of indicative of juveniles. Our theory is they watch dad build a structure, they build a small one. And I'd stay down that first day, probably till about 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that very first day, I caught a thermal image of a juvenile Sasquatch across the street from Mr. Paul, his front porch. And I was just amazed.
My goodness, that quick. And it takes a little bit of work to get to Mark's area, right? Like, it's, from what I know, it's out in the woods a bit.
Yeah, on the screen there, I've got some of the stuff you'll see here are going to be pictures, audios, and thermals that Charles and I are going to present today. But we've just put together a little PowerPoint, and you can see Clay County, Tennessee. We've shaded that in red. So from central Kentucky, where Charles and I are at, it's about a 3-hour and 15-minute drive one way to Mark's property. And yes, Mark, he is way out in the country.
This is close to Overton County as well, right, guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
And part of our presentation today, we did go into Standing Stone State Park, which is in Overton County, Tennessee. And from Mr. Paul's property, as the crow flies, you're probably about 3.5 miles to being in Standing Stone State Park in State Forest.
Guys, I would say let's get right into it. I'll let you go right ahead.
Okay. Charles and I, we just want to briefly do our disclaimers just to let everyone know. Charles and I are not snake oil salesmen. We're not here to hoax, fabricate. Everything we present on this show is the real McCoy. And we also ask that anything that you may know about Bigfoot, whether it's firsthand experience, friends or family, or anything you've heard on other podcasts, we just ask that you give us a clean slate. And at the end of our presentation, then compare what you may know, firsthand experience, secondhand experience. And our last caveat is all images, videos, audio recordings that we present are not altered, manipulated, enhanced, nor is their genesis attributed to artificial intelligence. The only thing that has been done to those is I put my copyright in those just to protect our efforts. We give these pictures freely. We just don't want someone to come along and make a profit off of those. We do our research we hope to move the needle closer to the recognition of the Sasquatch species and eventually their protection. So we're not out here trying to make a buck in any shape, form, or fashion.
If listeners remember, in the show, I've mentioned how there's research going on in the background that nobody knows about at this time, and that it's probably some of the best. This is what I was talking about. Feel free to go right ahead, guys.
Okay. So in trying to get that clean slate, so Charles and I got a reflection. It's from Arthur Schopenhauer, and he talks about truth. And he says, all truth passes through 3 stages. First, the truth is ridiculed, which we're all familiar with that in this community. Second, the truth is violently opposed. And then thirdly, it is accepted as being self-evident. So just to give you a little bit more information about Charles and I, our motivation for Sasquatch research, as I stated previously, we believe species recognition and protection is where this needs to go. Whatever we can do to move that needle closer, that's our mission. And secondly, people have the right to know about these creatures. I think for the most part, these creatures just don't want anything to do with humans. But we've had some violent encounters before the Paul property. And if you're an individual or you're your family and you enjoy the outdoors and you enjoy being in national forests and remote areas, you have a right to know about these things, because you obviously are going to have to do your due diligence in making protection and safeguarding yourself or your family and friends. And lastly, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I am just amazed at the number of people, not in recent memory, the 1600s, 1800s, 1900s, that have reported these creatures and newspaper articles about these creatures and encounters with people of these different eras, but is to vindicate those people. A lot of people, if you go through any human society, honesty has always been considered a key moral virtue. You can look at the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, and honesty and being able to be truthful, even when it's difficult or inconvenient, or going to bring some bad things on you. I just say thank you to all those people who've come forward with their encounters in Sasquatch. And thank you, Jeremiah, for your show and providing a platform for these people.
In the last 7 years, Greg and I have not missed a weekend hiking trip. Or if it was raining, snowing, whatever, we didn't miss a trip. Some of them were night hikes, some of them were morning hikes. And over that period, we have found 4 different campsites where the tents were tore down, their backpacks, everything was still there. They just left and never came back and got their stuff for some reason. And when we would find them, they were at different times. This is over a 7-year period of time, but in the same 5-mile radius area. And we would find, an abandoned campsite with backpacks that were worth several $100s and all their stuff still there. The tent would be tore down. And we would just leave it there and then come back, 3 weeks or a month later to check it, and it would still be there. Was it after the third one that we actually told the police about it? Was there any missing people or anything going on? But yeah, when people are hiking off trail, they've got to be on their toes. To this day, we still have no idea what was up with those 4 campsites.
And that was up in Kentucky?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Central Kentucky, London area. Cane Creek Wildlife Management Area, Hawk Creek area, for any of your listeners familiar with the London, Kentucky area. But one other thing I would like to add, don't you know that this Thanksgiving and Christmas 2024 holidays was probably the most significant in memory? And I say this because everybody, our family gatherings, we might have an uncle that's a little bit different, or an aunt or something that may have talked about seeing something or a UFO or whatever. Don't you know that the most spoken word over these 2 holidays was, "I told you." Like Charles said, we've been hiking for many years. We just had really strange things happen that we could not explain, from rocks flying out in the middle of nowhere at us to finding tortoise shells 8 foot up in a tree limb, footprints. Like Charles said, we started being more aware of our environment. We've been paralleled, we've had screens, and then like I said, we finally had an encounter, and we've had several, but that led us up to the Paul property because, like I said earlier, it's really hard when you're in remote areas or the wilderness. I believe it's up to the Sasquatch creatures whether you're going to see them or not. They have every advantage over us. They have size, they have speed, they have a great sense of smell. They can see in night, which we can't. So when you're in those wilderness areas, it's just going to be a challenge and infrequent. That's what really drew us after listening to Mr. Paul's story. The things that he described, those are things that we have observed firsthand. And we knew that there was something there. And we had talked about, if it really is and it pans out to be, what a wonderful opportunity rather than having an encounter every 6 or 9 months, but to be able to see and document these creatures more regularly. And that was our desire for reaching out to you to get a hold of Mr. Paul.
Absolutely. The things that Mark was sharing with me and the photos that he would send me all the time, I myself, I knew Mark had something special there, but I also knew that most of my listeners were just not going to get it. And I was like, man, I just wish someone could check this place out. And so I was so happy when you guys reached out, when Greg, you reached out. I was like, and especially when Greg started sharing with me what his plans were, and he'll get into this, I'm sure, like the amount of tech that you put into Mark's property is incredible. It's up there with shows like Expedition Bigfoot. It's absolutely insanity. Like, it's levels above anything else. Hats off to you.
I want to touch a minute on the juvenile Bigfoot. They don't have phones or anything for entertainment. Their only form of entertainment is when they see humans in the woods. And it's a game to them to just spy on hikers or anybody like that, much like we did when we were kids. How you would get out and hide behind cars and spy. We're their only entertainment. And then like trail cams, my favorite one is, how come people don't catch them on trail cams? Oh, you mean the ones with the little red light that stays on all the time? If one of those was in your bedroom, would that stick out? Because this is their house. This is where they live. A red light all of a sudden glowing, they're not going to get around that. Sticks out too much.
All right. So moving on, we're fixing to get to the good stuff here. And for your audience, what you're seeing on the screen now is a picture. We had sent a drone up. We use a drone usually in the winter when there's no foliage on the trees, so you can actually see stuff. But this just gives you an idea of the vast timber. Here is the road in front of the Paul property, how you get to it. But if you just look out beyond here, I had looked at this had been some time ago, but online, they have distance horizon calculators. So at 400 foot up, you're basically seeing out about 20 miles on that horizon there. So you basically have got 30 miles in width here and 20 miles in depth. And just look at that forest. And then when you look at the forest, look at the terrain here, these valleys. These are very steep. The majority of these valleys, people can't walk up and down. You would need climbing gear or a rope. There's very few places that humans could enter and make an egress. So we got this picture just so your folks understand the vastness here, because Clay County, Tennessee, I'd read their 2020 census. There's only about 7,500 people that live in this county. And it's just timber and rugged land everywhere. And also, the next slide we've got here this is from one of our security cameras that we've mounted behind Mark's house. Just to give you an idea, there's a doe and a fawn. There are bobcats, turkey, deer, foxes, you name it, the wildlife is there. Very dense vegetation forest there. It's just amazing. It's a nature enthusiast paradise just for the beauty and aesthetics there. So let's get into the good stuff. So this is what I mentioned before. The very first night I had went down, or the first day I'd went to visit Mr. Paul that evening, this is a juvenile Sasquatch right across the street that I captured. What I'd done is I'd taken a screenshot. I have a Pulsar Helion monocular, and then I have a Pulsar Thermion rifle scope, and I had my rifle scope off my rifle, and I'm set here at 2x magnification, and you can see my crosshairs. And you can see right here at the bottom of the crosshair is the foot, and his calf and knee is right there. And this dark area is a big vine that he was crossing over. And you can see his heat signature, and I'm going to zoom in here. You can see his arm, and right here is his face. And you notice this lighter shading there. I believe that to be hair on the top of his head and his back. And if you look at his leg here, you can see a little bit of heat coming through his hair in this area right there. So that was our first night down. And that, like I said, I was on Mr. Paul's porch. It's a little bit out of focus. Where we thought they would appear at, they did not appear. They normally on the Paul property, as you're standing on his front porch, to the left is a big, thick hedgerow. He had told me they come in there quite a bit. So I had preset and pre-focused my thermal for being up much closer, about 20 yards. And the picture you're looking at is about 85 yards away. Like I said, it's across the street from Mr. Paul's house on his neighbor's property. It came up out of the woods, and I was able to capture that. The picture on the left is what I just presented, and then this picture on the right, I did a side-by-side, the same thermal rifle scope, and there is Mr. Paul standing to give you an idea. So you can see with the y-axis there that Mr. Paul on that reticle sight, he is right at 6 foot. And then you compare it to the juvenile here. This juvenile is probably 2.5, 3 foot. And at the bottom here, I'm going to call out on the screen. You'll see it. My reticle, when I captured the juvenile, was at 2x magnification. And then Mr. Paul and his dog is to the right here too. It also was 2x, and I was standing on the front porch, the exact same place that I got the juvenile the first day down there. That first day down, we went into the woods, his property, and I was just astonished at the tree breaks, and not necessarily complete breaks, but the twists that they employ. We found partial footprints, we found good footprints, varying sizes. We knew that it was a definite hot spot, and for this to happen on the first night was simply amazing. After we captured that thermal, we've got a cellular trail camera that we took down, and when talking with Mr. Paul, there was a lot of activity behind his house, which was where the forest begins. So we mounted a cellular trail camera. It's a Reconnex Hyperfire 2 for anyone interested. And every time it's triggered, it will take 3 photographs, and I had it set to do a 10-second video. And the camera also has the capability for you to remote into it from anywhere. There's an app you can put on your cell phone, and you can pull pictures randomly. So I could be in Kentucky and I'm just going to pull some pictures and see if I see anything. And I did that quite a bit, just fearful if these creatures seen that, if they were used to going up in Mr. Paul's backyard and banging on the back of his house, if they seen that camera, it might put them at ease. It might make them uncomfortable. So I just randomly pulled pictures. So what I'm going to do here is pull up a picture, and you can see in the bottom, all the cellular camera pictures are embedded with the Reconnex outline. And up here in the top left is the date. So this is 6/23 at 8:56 in the morning, 32 seconds. And I have circled this, and you're going to see a face there. So these creatures, as a much younger man, I had served in the United States Navy. And not only the Navy, but the Air Force and Army, they have military occupational schools, your profession or trade that you do while you serve in the military. But one of the schools that some MLS trades go to is called SERE, S-E-R-E in the Navy. So SERE is survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. So I think it's like a 2 or 3 week course. They'll teach people on air crew, pilots, different MOS specialties that may be in areas of potential danger. If they got shot down or something bad happened, how to navigate out of hostile territory. And they'll teach a lot of different techniques for those 4 areas. But I can honestly say these Sasquatch creatures could teach any SERE class for any branch of the military. Because if you look at this guy right here where I've got that circle, you can see his one eyeball there and his left eyeball there. You can see his nose. Up here, you can see the outline of his head, and he is just barely peeking through that foliage. This guy, this isn't his first rodeo. He's right there. He's covered up, but he's got full view of this open area, the grass mowed down behind Mr. Paul's house, and he's just eyeballing the back of his house. So this picture was taken at 8:56. This next picture was taken the same day at 8:59, roughly three and a half minutes later. So I've got it marked here. And look at this guy. I believe this is a different Sasquatch creature because its head is much bigger. Here you can see its nose. Its nose is not, don't know the exact term, but doesn't have a hood on it. It's like the nostril is open there at the bottom. And I'll zoom that back so you can see that a little bit better. So one of the things that Charles and I like to do is when we get pictures, we like to do a comparison side by side. And this is what you have. So this picture over here on the left-hand side is the one that was made at, I think it was 8:32 in the morning. And this other one is the last one I'd shown. And I'm just going to zoom these in a little bit so you can see them both together. So the individual on the left-hand side of the screen, so you can look at his eyeball, both eyeballs right there. I'm doing this call out. And then this creature in the right picture, his eyeballs are right there. They're much bigger, and there you can see his nostril open.
Absolutely.
I'll just pull that down to where you get both of them so your audience will get a good look there. But like I said, both of these pictures are made on 6/23/2024, roughly 3.5 minutes apart. And you can see just how well these guys conceal and move about.
That is, it's incredible. It just blows my mind, dude.
Let me try to bring us up a little bit more. Yeah, and for your audience, I've got a laptop and an extended monitor, and I'm presenting on the extended monitor. This is a pretty high definition monitor, so I'm hoping this resolution will come through very well for you to see as well.
Greg, is that an area of his property that a lot of activity would happen in?
Yes, let me bring up the previous picture here just to show. This right here is Mr. Paul's home, and you can see the tire swing. We put that up thinking we could lure a juvenile out to play with it for the camera, but that didn't pan out very well for us. But you can see this open area, and when discussing with Mr. Paul, these creatures would come up and bang on the back of his house.
Right.
And they'd done it quite a bit. I think he said it was averaging every week and a half to 2 weeks. And I don't believe there was any malicious intent on their part. I really believe they're just not accustomed to or know human customs or procedures of like knocking on a front door, which they would obviously never do. But Charles and I even talked about, we believe this is their way of just saying hello. And we could be totally wrong.
The area down in there is just so densely populated that we were down there one day cleaning up around the trailer, and I had a weed eater, and I had it turned up straight in the air, getting some higher branches cleared out, and it ended up getting a picture with the camera that's there now, and then Greg got to zooming, and you can see one that wasn't 15 or 20 foot from me that was in the woods sitting right there watching me, just plain as day. They can blend in just the shadows and the movement. It's hard to see something if it's not moving, and they will stand still. You have to look to be able to see them. They don't make mistakes stepping on branches or anything like that. They're masters of hiding.
I think it's the first time I've seen those photos. It just totally blows my mind.
The food down there is just like up here in Kentucky, we have grapevines that grow in trees, but down there in this area, they actually produce grapes, big, huge grapes. So like when you're walking through the woods, There's grapes laying all over on the ground, persimmon, walnuts, hickory nuts, pears, all kinds of deer. Looked a while ago, there was 6 deer in the front yard. It's just a lot of times we'll be down there for 8 hours and maybe 3 vehicles will pass on the road in front of the house. There's just no people or traffic or anything in that area.
So this is a different series of pictures we're going to bring up. So this picture is dated. It was taken on 6/3/2024 at 8:03 in the morning. And I circled this there, and I'm zooming in, and there you can see the face and that open nostril again. You see an individual peeking at the cellular trail camera.
No
like
way,
I said,
dude.
Yeah, so you can see it. I mean, like Charles is saying, these guys are masters of camouflage. These are just random pulls that I'd made with the cellular trail camera to capture these series of pictures we're presenting. The cellular trail camera is set up with a motion sensor that detects heat, but we really believe anything out of the ordinary, they know. Maybe they know what a cell camera is or a trail camera. I have no idea. But anything new or out of the ordinary, they just want nothing to do with it. And here's a picture, and I'm going to zoom out here. This is probably 30 or 40 foot from the cellular trail camera that was mounted on the corner fence post at the Paul property. And like I said, you can clearly see the nostril. You can see both nostrils right there. Yeah. You can see the recessed eyes there, a heavy brow ridge. So this picture right here was at 8:03 in the morning, 17 seconds. This next picture is at 8:16, so roughly 13 and a half minutes, the same area. So I'm going to zoom in there, and you can see that there was some movement just to show that the previous subject in the picture is no longer there, just to give folks an idea. And then here's the side-by-side comparison. Like I said, we like to do the side-by-side comparisons. And to give you some more information, what we would do is we would bring the picture up on our screen. We would use the window snipping tool. We would make a screenshot, and then we would put both pictures together, lining them up. And down here at the bottom, you'll see this is the zoom magnification for this picture at 121%. And then the second picture, 121%. We'd always make sure those parameters are the same on our zoom.
How tall is that?
That right there is about 7 foot.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. We'll go on to our next series of pictures. This picture was taken on 5/29/2024 at 12:03. The cellular trail camera, I set it to always take 1 picture a day to make sure the system's working, because as it takes a picture, the app I have on my phone, it would notify me and I can pull it up and look at the picture from my phone. So even though this camera was in Tennessee, I'm in Kentucky, I can still see what's going on. I can even live remote into the cellular trail camera when I'm in Kentucky and it's in Tennessee or anywhere else. But I got to looking, and you can see right here that this one was a really strange picture. You can see an outline. You can see what appears to be something pretty hairy, 2 eyeballs. There's one and there's the other. There's the mouth. There's the chin area. It looks like maybe a hand over the fence there that's hard to see. I'll zoom that in a little bit more. Can you see that?
Right.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's really the reason that we chose this picture. It's almost like the sunlight is being diffracted. I mean, this subject is very, I'm not going to say a cloak or anything like that, but it's like the light is being bent as it hits it. And I know there's been a lot of discussion in the Sasquatch Bigfoot community of these creatures' hair samples having no medulla in their hair. Even that trait happens in humans from what I read, but it's normally very rare that it happens in humans, and they're normally Scandinavian descent. in that their hair, the shaft has no material in it. And it makes you wonder if that's what's going on here. Is this individual's hair, because it lacks any material in the patella, does it make it shady or fuzzy? So this picture right here was taken, like I said, at 12:03 on 5/29/2024. The second picture was taken at 12:13 on the same day, so roughly 10 minutes later, and clearly you see nothing there.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you do the comparison, the side by side here on the right, there you can see what appears to be some type of creature. And then 10 minutes later, over here on the left, there's nothing. We thought that one was very strange. It just makes you wonder.
Yeah, it is very weird.
So we'll go on to our next picture, our picture number 5. So this was one of our first pictures, really good pictures that we got with the cellular trail camera. Like I said, down here in the bottom, you can see the Reconnex logo. And we're zooming in here. Both of these trees here are black walnut trees, and you can see nothing in between those two trees right there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is at 8:07 in the morning. Just by sheer luck, that 12:03 p.m. picture that the camera is set to take every day so that we know that it's working, now you see something there.
Oh.
Let me zoom that in a little bit more. Now you can see there's the eyes, there's the nose. And this creature, I would guess, is probably of the female. And I don't know. It almost looks like it has ears maybe on the top of its head. I don't know. All the Sasquatches I've seen have ears just like humans do. And even for their size, their ears seem to be proportionally smaller than that of humans.
Does it almost look like it's peeking around a tree, or what do you guys think?
Yeah. It is. So you can see the ground there. And I'm going to bring up another picture here. So this picture was taken in the fall. And one of the things that we did, this walnut tree, you can see me call out with the mouse. You'll see an orange line there. You'll see an orange line there. We marked trees around the back of his home in 1 foot increments to help us gauge sizes. And you can see that goes all the way up. Like I said, this was taken in the fall. You see a lot of leaves are off the tree. But going back to this individual is about 7.5 foot tall. And I'll bring up the comparison of the two pictures together. So you'll see over here on the left, you see nothing at the 8:03 a.m. And then here you see the 12:03. You'll see it right there. It's like its body is behind. Now, this is a bigger walnut tree. So it's hiding, it's concealing its body behind the walnut tree there. And then it's just peeking its head around, and then it's looking directly at that cellular trail camera. Pull that back a little bit so you can see both of them.
So there you can even see daylight coming through. It's just obviously
and for
something blocking it all.
For your audience, so the picture over here on the left that doesn't have anything, in the morning, the front of Mr. Paul's home points to the east. So you get a lot of that morning sun coming in this area. And this area is his chicken coop area. That's an old chicken coop from the home that used to be there years ago next to his property. And they use that for concealment as well. They'll travel around behind it and peek out. You'll see them from time to time. But I'll bring the picture back up. This is a little bit better resolution for your audience to see, and I'll zoom in to let them get another good look there. But that is I'm guessing it's a Sasquatch, but I think Sasquatch are a lot like humans. They have a lot of different, from individual to individual, they have a lot of different traits just like humans do.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And you can use the process of elimination. It's definitely not a deer. It's not a rabbit. What else can it be? It has human-like eyes and nose.
No squirrel, that's for sure, Charles.
So we'll go on to our last cellular trail camera picture, and this is one of our favorites. So actually, let me bring this picture up first. Once again, down here in the bottom, you'll see the Reconnaissance icon. This picture was made on June 3rd, 2024 at 6 minutes after 6 p.m. And that same walnut tree, we're going to zoom in here. Notice you see nothing up there other than the trees, that circle area. The next picture was a few minutes before at 6:01 p.m. on this same day. And there is the big guy. I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Oh.
There is one of our best pictures. You can clearly see the traits of the open nostrils, or what I'm calling the hood. It seems to like a hood. It's got a gray beard around its chin there. There's its left eye, and there's its right eye. This looks like you can see his arm, his shoulder right there going down. And it looks like this may be the belly with not as much hair, but now this is the sun coming from the west where it's later in the afternoon. But yeah, that guy is a monster. He's probably every bit of 9.5 to 10 foot tall. Here is the comparison, both of them together. You can see right here, it's like he's just massive. And just so your audience knows, I had the crazy idea after we got this picture, and the next time we were at Mark's, I'm going to climb up in that tree and pull a picture so you could see me as a size comparison. Little did I realize that this limb right here that was the only first limb that I could get to, that's about 10 foot up. There's no way in the world I could get on that.
Oh.
And so he is a monster. I would guess, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more in the comparison picture. So from the bottom of his stomach there to the top of his head, I'm going to guess that's good 5.5, 6 foot easy. Yeah. That's being conservative. He may be a little bit taller. He's just a monster.
My goodness.
I'll pull that so we can get. And like I said, we've done everything. You can see the back of Mr. Paul's home and the picture on the left, and to make sure we got it sized up. We're zoomed in at 86% there. We did, 146%. And then on the picture on the left, once again, 146. We were trying to match this up the best we could. And just look at that guy there. He is a hoss. And he's looking over. Let me bring up like I said, the comparison pictures are screenshots that we made. And the pictures themselves have a little bit better resolution, and you can almost see the whites in his eyes as he's looking out over Mr. Paul's home, like he's looking over across the street, over in the fields to the forest on the other side of Mr. Paul's property across the street.
Mark would say something to the effect of, "They're all over the place here, man. They're everywhere on my property." He's like, "Yeah, here it is."
Yeah. Yep. This one is one of our better pictures. Like I said, you get some real detail. And I'm just like everyone else. I want to know what they look like. It's all about how big are they? What do they look like? And I'm just shocked that this guy's like a Neanderthal, like maybe an ancient human. Who knows? But he definitely has a lot of human characteristics about him, in his face and looking at him. There's no doubt it's going on at Mr. Paul's property.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, going on.
The great thing about this, one of the great things about this episode is that it's vindication for Mark as well, because when there's a lot of interesting comments on those other episodes, and just to be able to be like, yeah, well, check out this stuff, guys. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was picture number 6 from the cellular trail camera. And our next progression in the investigation down there, we brought in a high definition security camera. We actually brought in 4 cameras, and the camera that sits in the back of Mr. Paul's property is a tilt pan zoom with a 25x zoom on it. It also has infrared lighting for nighttime, as do the 3 cameras that we put on his front porch. And the 3 cameras on his front porch are not tilt, pan, zoom. They're strictly Lorex security cameras. And we disabled the infrared on those, and we got flower pots and we drilled holes with a hole saw to hide those cameras in the 3 flower pots out front of his house in the hopes of catching these guys. With that being said, we're going to move on to the security camera out back. And this is going to be, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring up this picture first. So what your audience, just so they know, this white dot there is a moth that's flying. You'll see another one there. You'll see one there. You'll see one there. There are obviously a lot of bugs, moths, cicadas, things like that. And I'm going to zoom in, and you'll see at the forest line that eye shine. Now, since we deployed the security cameras, these guys avoid them like the plague. This is as close as they'll get. But here it is, nighttime. The infrared illumination is on. That's what you're seeing. And there is an eye shine. This is a still photograph taken from the video that I'm going to pull up here and drag over so you can see the eye shine and as it happened. Let me pause this and bring it up. And just for the audience, I put an arrow that's going to gray in and out showing you where the eye shine is. And I'll hit play here. So as it gets to the end of the video, you're going to see the eye shine disappear. And I'll play it one more time there. So here this creature is at the back of Mark's home, stooped down in the grass and the tree weeds and stuff, and just looking out at Mark's house. And I'll bring the picture back up. Actually, this is a different picture. It's the same picture you've seen previously, but I was playing around trying to lighten it up. And I'm going to zoom this in here. And you can see the eyes there, and you can see the outline of a head right there. But once again, it's concealed in all of these weeds and foliage there as it's looking at the back of Mr. Paul's property at the back of his home.
Any idea how high up those eyes are from the ground?
Those are probably about 4 foot up, but now whether that individual is standing fully erect or on its knees, we don't know. We just caught that. And like I said, tilt pan zoom camera at the back of his home. It has an infrared illuminator. These guys can see in that spectrum. These creatures can see in that. That's why they just don't come around to get them in open. But like I said, these white dots are moths flying around, other bugs. It's amazing, all the bugs there at nighttime, and the infrared light seems to attract them as well. I'll play the video one more time here.
Yeah.
And then it's like it closes its left eye, and then it closes the right. It doesn't close both of them simultaneously. And we've noticed that in seeing them at Mark's property. They would definitely win staring contests, but when they do blink, it's not both eyes. They'll either blink their right eye, and then maybe 5 or 10 seconds later, then they'll blink their left eye. Once again, it's almost like there's a strategy. There's some cognition there, not losing what they're looking at. They'll only blink one eye at a time. It makes you wonder. In the next eye shine picture that we have, and I'm actually going to bring up a daytime photo. So this is a comparison. So on the left here is obviously a daytime picture. This is the walnut tree that we got the female creature on the cellular trail camera. Just a little bit different angle where we've mounted this security tilt pan zoom camera. And we've got our tick marks there. They're a little bit out of focus there, but you can see the orange marks representing 1 foot. So right here on the right is a nighttime eye shine picture we got. And as you're looking at that, right here is the masonry block. Right here is the masonry block, trying to line those up. This creature just trying to come straight across is falling in this area right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then to the ground 6 foot. So it's between 6 and 7 foot. It's fallen in this area right there. And you can see it's camouflage. It's hiding behind that walnut tree, peeking its head out, and you can see the eye shine right there, the 2 eyes. And then this is a normal, hold on here, let me get the right picture. Here it is. I'm going to zoom this in. This is an actual photograph taken. So you can see there, peeking around there. And then here is the video we got of him peeking around from the security camera. There it is. See how he just blinked them for about 2 seconds?
Yep.
There he is.
Yeah.
Now he closed his eyes. Play it one more time. Eyes open, eyes closed. So they're pretty elusive.
So something I've noticed so far is that you have, it looks like multiple individuals, multiple heights on this property.
Yes, definitely.
In our observations, and with a lot of information coming from Mark, it appears to be 2 different family groups. Family group A is only 3 individuals. Family group B is 5 to 6 individuals. Both family group A, the one juvenile, is a very small juvenile, and then family group B also has a very small juvenile, sort of, I'm guessing, the same age based on their sizes. But it appears to be 2 separate family groups.
You can sit in front of the house for 8 or 10 hours and you just don't see any traffic. His 1 or 2 neighbors that live there are relatively close. They're like in their 80s, no children. Each one lives by themselves. There's just really no foot traffic out in there to mess with them. I think they've taken advantage of that and just set up camp. I think they're staying in that same area and really never leaving.
Oh, I would agree. And I don't want to get on a rabbit trail, but I'm just remembering how Mark would share that it's not just his property that are having issues. His neighbors all around him are having just really interesting encounters with these Bigfoot and maybe other things as well.
A lot of times when we would leave out of there, it would be dark. And you pass probably 3 or 4 houses on his road going back out to the next road. And every one of them would have those little solar lights that you put out in your yard, hundreds of them, just to light up their yard so that they would stay further away. Why else would anybody have that many of them up?
Yeah, you definitely see. And one of the things, another thing that we noticed there, it appears when these creatures go to certain neighbors of Mark's that they will shoot in the hopes of warding them off. And I think it was my 3rd visit that I had made to Mark's house. It was late afternoon, and it was actually when I was trying to do some size comparison with the thermal, and Mark was out at the road, and we heard a wood knock. And I mean, it was a really strong and loud wood knock. And then I left his porch and I started going out there, and we heard the wood knock again. And on the neighbor on the other ridge of Mark, in that area where the wood knock was coming from, it was down in the creek valley part. They started shooting what I think was a pistol, maybe a 9mm, could have been a 45, but I think it was a 9mm. They emptied a clip, and that Sasquatch just beat that tree harder. And then they got another clip, emptied it, and that Sasquatch continued to tree knock. He or she, I don't know what sex it was, but it just absolutely wore that tree out, and it seemed like the gunshot just agitated it or motivated it to do more wood knocking.
And something along that lines is obviously the older ones teach the younger ones where the water source is at or where the food source is at. And let's pass down from generation to generation of them. all the years we've spent hiking, a lot of it happened to be during hunting seasons. I think that they're smart enough that they have put it together that if they hear one shot, wait a few hours, there's a good chance that was a deer hunter. And the first thing a deer hunter does is guts his animal. That leaves a big gut pile sitting there that they can get without putting any energy into getting it. So I think that when they hear one gunshot, I think an hour or so that they might go toward that one gunshot. I think like down there at Marks where somebody fired many gunshots and then the Bigfoot went off with the massive tree knocking. I think that was its way of letting other Bigfoots no, don't go to this. They're shooting. This is not a free meal. This is multiple shots. And that's what that just rapid tree knocks meant. Stay away. Don't come here.
Absolutely.
And Jeremiah, you mentioned, asking about the different sizes. So this is another trail cam photo, and I've highlighted two areas, but right here on the left, you can see a black image of something pretty small right there, almost like an eye right there and another eye, the nose right there. So this picture was taken on 6/3 at 10:15 in the morning. The picture on the right here was the same date at 10:36, some 16 minutes later. There's one of your juveniles.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
This is a brush weed pile that Mark had behind his property, and those guys, it's just foliage cover for them to come up. But you can see that right there is a juvenile. You can don't know how much it's distorting, zoomed in this close. You can see the nose, the eyes. You can see the hairline around the face. Right there's the mouth. Bring it down just a little bit, try not to distort it as much.
The exact same thing jumped out to me before you had to explain it. Yeah, no, I think it's right there, man.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull up another trail camera picture. Oh, that's the one we already showed in that one. This is something I've been hesitant to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it. So this is another comparison picture as we do. It's picture on the left and picture on the right. This picture was taken on 5/29 at 15:15 or 3:15 in the afternoon. This one right here was taken roughly 5 minutes later on that same date. Right here, the picture on the right, you can see what looks like an individual there. You can see their right eye. You can see their left eye. There's some foliage. You can see a nose. You can see the top of its head there, the bottom. Over here, though, like I said, these pictures are roughly 5 minutes apart. Doesn't that look like a dog in that same location, about 7.5 foot up in the tree?
Oh, we're gonna bring that stuff into it.
We're gonna bring that into it.
Oh, good. I was like, I hope he does because it's nuts, dude. This stuff. Yeah, dude. Oh man.
Yeah. Let me put them where you can see both of them.
So you can see this one's body where it comes on down. See, this one's got the sun coming through it.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, this one, the sun's been blocked out where it can't come through. This one, you've got all kinds of sun coming through.
And this one on the left here, look at those eyes. Definitely the eyes are different, like it's reflecting the sunlight more so than the creature on the right over here.
And its leg would be going back in, standing on the branch right here.
Yeah. And just so your listeners know, to fill this in, the first night I went to Mr. Paul's property and we got that juvenile, there was another creature that had ears on top of his head, and it was like 10 seconds in front of the juvenile picture that I presented. It's almost like there's, these Dogman type creatures and these Bigfoots seem to be friends or work together, because they were definitely, if they were some type of enemies or didn't get along, a juvenile Sasquatch wouldn't be with a Dogman creature, in my opinion.
No, you had told me that there's Dogman in this area as well, and other people have told me as well.
This was the only daytime picture of a potential Dogman creature there on the left that you're seeing. The thermal, I don't think I have that one easily available, and it really, this picture does it more justice. There's more to be drawn in looking at it and examining it than the thermal, because like I said, on that first night, using that thermal rifle scope, the focus it's not an automatic focus on the end of that reticle. You have a manual adjustment you have to do, and it's very stiff to compensate for the recoil of a shotgun or a rifle. And I had preset the focus on that for about 25, 30 yards and not 80, 85 yards when we got that first creature. I just happened to be scanning to the right, and I'd seen this big thermal hit with ears on top of its head, and the face that you see right here in this picture matches up with what that thermal would look like if you've seen a daytime representation of it.
No, it's one of the craziest thermal photos I've seen, and maybe someday you'll be able to show that a different time. But yeah, no, there's without a doubt both of those creatures are on that property.
Absolutely, yeah, yep. Yeah, and that's the only time, just that first day. And then, of course, here on 5/29/2024, the cellular camera, the Dogman, if that's what they are, that we were able to capture with anything. It's very interesting. Like I said, those two individuals, the juvenile Sasquatch and the Dogman creature, they were together. So I know a lot of people have talked about sometimes they don't get along. I've heard other shows where people have had encounters with both types of those creatures, and they seem to get along fine. So whatever's going, at Mr. Paul's property, they seem to have an understanding and agreement and potentially work together.
To be continued tomorrow.